Hello. Yeah, just renovating the console room here. Nearly done. Not quite ready yet, so just to tide you over, something a little different this time. Type 40 will be back very soon with our third season on the Fandom Podcast Network, but we recorded this show live on YouTube a few months ago now, always with the intention to bring it to the podcast too. Long-term listeners may recall how we found the latest season of Doctor Who proper, well, a bit of a trial. And we weren't alone, but we wanted to cheer ourselves up, answer some of the comments that we've been getting, which we thought were fair enough, and entertain you and ourselves at the same time. Deliberately gathering together people who are other content makers, perhaps with some pretty strong views, but pure love for Doctor Who in their hearts, and very creative minds. What if you were the showrunner of Doctor Who? What would you do, or not, if you had the power for that do-over? Isn't it fun to speculate? Yes, it's time for Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast live from the Spacebook for the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we take an in-depth and closer look at this beloved television series, the spin-offs, the merchandise, even the fandom itself. Doctor Who's gone from homegrown family favourite to international entertainment legend and shaped the landscape of science fiction and fantasy for well over 5 decades along the way. Now step into our TARDIS, this humble TARDIS here, and share our journey together here on Type 40. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. A very different kind of show, very different kind of podcast, come video, whatever. An open conversation due to popular demand. Yes, so here we are at last on YouTube for live Doctor Who Run the Show. Who's going to be running the show? Will you be pleased to know it's not me, or not just me. I'm Dan Hadley, your regular Type 40 pilot and Birmingham's King of the Geeks, but actually a humble, lifelong Doctor Who fan just like you. But, if you're new to the Whoniverse, that's just as fine by us. There's no gatekeeping here, only conversation and fun and games. And really quite literally this time, because this is all quite a novel little idea by a friend of the channel. He'll be along again in a moment. Enough of me rambling on. I know you're not here just to see me. Let's check in with my co-host, Sheffield's original and the best time lady, our Queen of the North. Here she is.
Hello, Dan.
Starry-eyed as ever.
Suck up.
I know. Welcome back to Type 40, Sarah Graham. It's been a while, hasn't it? Been a few weeks since we last spoke.
It's been a few months, actually, I think.
The dawn of the tweet-along era, I think.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to be back. And hello, chat.
It's good to see you too. And yet, we've been talking about this, haven't we, for so long. Type 40 has been running for about 2 years. We've always talked about YouTube and we've played around with it a little bit. You've done lots of YouTube elsewhere. I've been making some really quite, let's be honest, pretty silly little videos. The first time we're bringing the podcast itself right to YouTube. I hope that your mind, you've got a very creative mind, haven't you? I hope it's bursting with ideas this evening.
I've spent the entire weekend. I think I've taken it too seriously.
As long as you just any of the ones that aren't safe for work, just the clean ones only. We'll start from there. But to keep an eye on me, I've always got Rosie, of course. She's here to keep an eye on my toxic masculinity, and she's very much my mascot. Have you got a Doctor Who mascot at all that you like to keep to hand?
I have indeed. I've got my jelly baby. I knit a jelly baby. This was my nan's. She passed away earlier this year. So it's doubly special to me. So I've got those memories as well, and it's just cool.
And does he have a name?
Jerry. Jerry the jelly baby.
Jerry the jelly. You couldn't write it, could you? Yeah. And he looks like he's had a long and happy life. got to be smiling about something. The thing is, if we were going to do this finally for all these good people who've been asking, because people do message, don't they? They've messaged the page, they've spoken to us individually about it. We wanted to make sure we had something a bit more unique. Yes, we could rope in more people, friends of ours, and probably friends of yours as well. If you spend a lot of time on YouTube, you're going to know a lot of these names. But the hook itself is the brainchild of one particular scurrilous individual. And we're going to bring him on now. He's friend of the channel, mega writer, mega producer, mega director, and a big old mega geek. It's Ian David. What have you got to say for yourself?
Nothing.
So you came to me with this idea, didn't you? Really,
I did.
2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said, "You know what we should do." And of course, this chimed with conversations that you and I have had over the last couple of years, Sarah. So there's no time like the present. And as we're all sort of fellow Doctor Who fans, we know the drill only too well. I know that I've got a big gob. I don't know about you two. I can't speak for you two, but I'm always thinking to myself, watching Doctor Who, and I think it's the same for all of us. And I've said on this show time and time again, it's kind of like the England manager's job. Most of us sitting by watching the sidelines really do think that we could do better, and we mouth off every chance we get.
We can do better,
and particularly since the start of this year, over on the podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, that was a hard trudge through the early part of the year, and quite rightly, some of the feedback that we got was well, if you think you can do better, put up or shut up. What would you do that's so special? So we thought, well, that's a fair enough question to ask, really, when you do as much moaning as we collectively have. So the idea is we brought a few people together who've got some, I think it's fair to say, some strong opinions, and a couple of sort of notorious names maybe, and to get creative and to get positive and to talk about what we do. So should we bring on the rest of the squad? What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Ladies first. This is somebody we've wanted to bring onto the show for some months now. On YouTube, she's been hosting her own watch-alongs. Would you call them, Andrea? Deep dive
exactly.
watch-alongs all through every era of Doctor Who, isn't it?
Yes, classic, some new, that, and just basically honoring all the classic to new Doctors recently.
Everybody gets a bit of time in the spotlight, don't they, on your channel? And you actually watch the episodes, don't you, live on screen, and people comment on people who are watching there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Some Big Finish too, but not listen alongs, but just basically people, reviewing and commenting on what they'd like about them.
But what I've noticed the most is you've got a very sort of dry and ready wit. You see things that people who've seen those episodes sometimes 50 or 60 times, they might not necessarily have seen them. I mean, certainly in my case.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not a full bench yet. We've got somebody else too. This is, I think our next guest has pulled more triggers than John Wayne. And some would have you believe that he
hasn't run out of bullets.
Some would have you believe that he's Doctor Who fandom's very own Valyard, but of course he's a supportive fellow content maker and a very generous friend. So yes, welcome aboard at last, the man known only as Bolstrek.
Yay!
Hello, everyone. I'm a logo. The trigger train is taking the day off.
Bolstrek.
So how is everyone?
Doing great.
Okay, so Sarah's shown us her jelly baby. That's not a euphemism. Is anybody else?
Carry on there.
Cut the camera.
Move on.
Okay, Ian, have you got any mascots that you like to keep to hand?
I do. I have this scarf. It's a bit big though, and it's too warm to wear actually. This was knitted by my friend Claudia for my birthday, no doubt, and it's very, very, very detailed, and as you can see, it's exactly like Tom Baker's scarf. So there you go. So I'm very proud of that.
There are people out there, Ian, who can identify exactly which season that scarf, that particular came from. How about you, Andrea? Have you got any mascots that you like to?
I do.
Hang on to.
I have Pertwee, who I actually run all my ideas through.
Does it light up?
No, it's just a mug. All right, it's just a mug. Okay. Yeah. And he'll be judging all the ideas tonight. So
pouring ideas out of John Pertwee's buffet. Buffet?
Yes.
Is that what they call it?
Bouffant.
That's it.
Bouffant.
A buffet is something you put your feet on, Dan. Right, and how about you, Bolstrick? Is that we all know that you're sort of a big and horrible, scary man with your icon, but I bet there's something that you like to keep to hand as well. Is there something that brings out the warm and the fuzzy?
I do have a police box, which I couldn't show anyway because it's actually packed away at the moment. But I do have my police box. I'm in the midst of moving, so it's a disaster. But yeah, I have my very own TARDIS. Sits normally in my living room.
You're not moving into the TARDIS, obviously. That would be silly.
I'd like to.
Wouldn't we all? Because, of course, we are all, everybody here is, the reason why we've got these little trinkets around is because we are passionate about Doctor Who. Passionate in not just watching Doctor Who, but in what it means to us throughout our lives in most cases. Or sometimes it can dip in and out of your life, can't it? It certainly has for me, as it's not just when it's been on or off screen. But in that time, we do form these ideas, these whether it be sort of fan-based theories in our own headcanon, all those things, those little things from behind the camera. If you're a professional filmmaker like Ian, for example, can you ever take the professional filmmaker's hat off permanently, Ian?
No. Every time I watch a film, I'm like, because I know what's happening, so I know how they got that shot. So it's impossible, really. You can switch your brain off sometimes.
Can't say I've ever dreamt particularly of being showrunner. And you like to write as well, don't you, Sarah? So have you often sort of thrown together ideas for stories and things?
They've not been very good. Well, but yeah, I've definitely had the thoughts, and ever since it came back, I wanted to be a part of it and get involved.
So, how about you, Andrea? How long have you been watching the show, and have ideas ever come to you?
I have been watching officially since 2013, so I was kind of late to the game. I had watched when I was younger a little bit. My brother kind of forced me to because we had one TV. But yeah, 2013, I'd seen the 1996 movie. But then I started with Eccleston, and then I was hooked by the third episode of Eccleston. And then it was became an obsession. But yeah, sometimes I will write things in my head at night when everything's very quiet, getting ready to go to sleep. I do that often, actually, which is really, I know that's strange to admit, but yeah, just about every night now.
Stitch a plot together in your sleep. With my favorite, whoever I think should be the Doctor. Do you ever remember the stories when you wake up?
No. I should probably write them down at some point.
Bolstrick, I know that, you see, the way I'm not blessed with the most critical of minds. I don't ever lay any claim to be a big critical thinker, but you very much are. Has it always been the case for you like that, or is this something that's come to you gradually?
Well, I think I became a grumpy old bastard as I got older.
No, really?
It's I've become a stereotype. I do have an academic background, which I don't involve myself in at all anymore, but sort of that's where my critical thinking came into play. In terms of Doctor, I've been a Doctor Who fan since I was 3 years old in 1981, so I go right back to the end of Tom Baker. But in terms of critical thinking, I've covered Doctor Who for over a decade. I've been doing YouTube it'll be 13 years in September.
Wow.
The style change 3 years ago was something that I contemplated for about 3 years prior to that. And it was when Jodie Whittaker was cast as the Doctor. I had some issues with it. I didn't think it was going to be quite as bad as it was, but I had some issues behind the motivation. It took me about a week to finally come out with the video. And all my videos, they used to be on camera. Yes, once upon a time I was on camera off the cuff. But with this video, it ended up being the first time I actually wrote a script for a video. So I wanted to say everything exactly. That video is still on it. It sounds terrible. I talk like this throughout the video because I'm trying not to be offensive to anyone. So that's really where it started. And then I went into other things. And as my lovely fan club started to get worse, one day I decided, you know what? I don't care anymore. I'm not going to try to please these people or try, because no matter how I said things, they would still come after me anyway. So that's when it was maybe about a year and a half ago where the ranting current version of my channel came, and that's sort of where it is. So I kind of got angrier as I got older. Anybody that's been doing YouTube for a long time, your channel changes over time.
The thing is, Boss Trek, and I've meant to say this for a while. We know you're a nice guy, really. It's no secret with us. I joined the internet relatively late, ridiculously late, everybody. And of course, the way that one does when you're a Doctor Who fan, when you get a new window like that open to you, the very first thing you do is search for Doctor Who. And I think that some of your videos, some of your DVD reviews were certainly amongst the very first that I ever found. Last but by no means least. Yeah, I'm going to give him the introduction. 40 years ago this year, Sarah. Of course, I don't remember this because I'm way too young. Mike Hodges' movie of Flash Gordon was released, and geek culture has held Brian Blessed's facial hair as the very pinnacle of its... You know where I'm going, don't you? The very pinnacle of its kind ever since, really. But nothing lasts forever. Volton's reign is over, and we are now subjects at the very beard of the mighty Gary Beekler of Nerdrotic. Welcome aboard, Gary.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hi, Gary.
Thank you for such an introduction there. I'm honored.
Everybody gets a great introduction here. Yeah, so the premise to this is, Gary, I'm going to explain now because, Ian, you're the joint parent, like the co-parent of this little premise, because the inspiration that we're taking from is the classic Doctor Who story Inferno, which was broadcast 50 years ago about now. But we're putting a specific spin on it, and we're averting disaster. We're not going to moan about it anymore. No. We're averting disaster to slip both sidewards and backwards in time to a parallel 2017, everybody.
Yes. But I mean, this is the idea, right? The idea is that there's people bitch about Doctor Who in this era and stuff like that. And I was saying to Dan, you know what? I'm just tired of doing that. Why don't we just pretend it never happened and just say, if we were the showrunners, what would we do? What would we do? If Moff decided to leave and they went, do you know what, Story-Eye Girl? You're perfect. Come and join the BBC. Tell us what you want to do. And that was the idea.
I was so close. They came to my city. Made it a laughing stock.
Could have been so different if they would have just turned left, right?
Yeah, so the general idea is that, we're moving away from all that and just we're putting our money where our mouth is. And we're going to go through all those sort of cornerstones, those touchstones to arrive at, six because I'll be chipping into sort of new versions of Doctor Who, roads that could have been taken then, and who knows, they could be taken again in the future. I'm the sort of person who I've recast the Doctor probably several regeneration cycles over in my head since I was a little kid. And for a time, I even had a sort of running list of actors I was sort of watching, actors and actresses, if I'm honest, at certain points. And they've gradually been edited and swapped around. I was only ever proven right once. That's not a great hit rate when you've been watching the show.
Also, has anyone thought that, pretended they were the Doctor in their head as well? I've done that hundreds of times.
Doctor Who fandom, it's the way you live your life. And I think even though I've worked in the creative industry, obviously, Ian, you are a one-man creative industry. And so your relationship with the source material, it does shift over time, your perspective of it. And I've found that my mind has changed, over both the little things and the large things.
Look, I'm a Doctor Who fan, right? But I there's hundreds of things I don't agree with what Moff done or what RT did.
Maybe we've been show running a version of Doctor Who in our heads for several decades already. Type 40 is a podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, and each and every edition of our show, past, present, and future, is up on the network's own master feed at fpnet.podbean.com and fpnet on the Podbean app. You can find all of our content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and we stream on iHeartRadio. That's a great place for all your podcast streaming needs, because apparently there are.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and wherever, however you listen to us normally, or you're watching us this time, you can let us know what you think of it all via our social media presence, Instagram and Twitter at Type40 Doctor Who. You can email us at type40doctorwho.gmail.com, and you can join our Facebook group. There's links to all of that in the comments section. Hold tight, everybody. I'm going to hit the fast return. See if I can shift us backwards or forwards in time. See, the magic of YouTube. Here we are. Can you feel it? Can you feel it, everybody? Do your
That is
own
so classic series.
sideways and backwards in time to 2017. Did that work? It's going to be terrible on the.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible on the podcast. But yeah, I'm sure everybody else will get it. So, Stephen Moffat. This is the premise, everybody. Stephen Moffat is still leaving Doctor Who, but the next series is fixed to follow from the next year. That's unarguable. It can't shift. It won't shift. You've got exactly the same budget, and you are the new showrunner. Other than that, it's a completely blank slate for your Series 11. So yeah, I think we have to come to you first for the starry-eyed view, Sarah. We've got to start, haven't we? We've got to start with the most obvious thing. Who would you cast as your Doctor? And more than that, how do you imagine that you would like them to play the part?
Apart from Peter, the only other person I've ever wanted to play the Doctor is Michael Sheen.
Jog our memories where we've seen Michael Sheen before.
He was in Good Omens. Yeah, there he is. He was in Good Omens just recently as Aziraphale. He's been in... I'm trying to think what else he's been in now. I'm having a complete mental blank. He was in the Underworld films. That's where I first noticed him. He was
Masters of Sex, the Twilight movies.
Yeah, we don't mention the Twilight movies then.
Okay.
I'll just mention Masters of Sex again until I remember something else. I don't know why I'm so fixated on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Nixon.
You know, he's used to doing a lot of fantasy. He's played, lots of authoritative roles. I think he can make you believe, that he's otherworldly, and we've seen that in Good Omens just recently. And I just think he's got the acting chops,
very much so.
To be able to carry it. And he's got a bit of the Troughton look there. I'd probably have a shave though. I'm not sure about the beard.
Well, they do
Maybe
describe.
some hair dye.
Michael Sheen recently played Chris Tarrant, didn't he, on ITV in another sort of true life drama. He played the game show as Chris Tarrant, and the same phrase got trotted out. He's played Brian Clough, he's played Kenneth Williams. Andrea, you're quite right. He has played David Frost in the Frost Nixon movie. This man, the running gag is that he is a chameleon, a real life chameleon. So when somebody is like that, Sarah, how do you imagine that he play the Doctor? Would he channel one of those personas? Was it one of those performances that got you thinking of him as a possible Doctor, or do you see it as something purely coming from him, something behind the eyes?
But a little bit from him and a little bit from Aziraphale, because I don't know if you watched that one, Dan. Where he plays an angel who likes being on Earth and he loves humans, and that really appealed to me. He can always see the humans' better nature and they're his favourite species, and it just spoke to me. It's so much like what the Doctor's about. And he has got this kind of thing with his eye. I think it's very important when you cast the Doctor, there's got to be something there with the eyes. And if you look at things like Peter Capaldi, Matt Smith was brilliant at doing it. Tom Baker too, obviously. But I really remember that's how come Matt Smith was so good in the role, because he could switch that look. And you just knew... that he's old and what he seems. He's not just this little puppy. And it's really important that an actor has that quality.
And Michael Sheen, I'd say that even though he is an actor who I think is in his early to mid-50s at the moment, he has got he's quite spry, isn't he? He's got a very youthful vigour about him.
And he's got quite the fan club, actually. Male and female. He's a bit of a hottie.
A hottie?
Oh.
Gary, what do you think of this?
I love it. I think it's a great decision. I would be behind that. He looks very good with a beard, actually.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what do you think of this pick?
Michael Sheen would be great. I mean, actually, that's actually be a pretty cool outfit for the Doctor.
Curly when natural, isn't it? Curly when natural.
Yeah.
And Ian Diaz, the mega geek, better hit us now with your mega Doctor, aren't you? Who would you cast? Who would you cast as the Doctor?
Yeah, I would cast Tom Ellis as the Doctor.
Tom
the reason
Ellis.
why I would cast Tom Ellis is because he's current at the moment right now, and he's also a really good actor, and he's been in Doctor Who before, and he's a good looking. I think he'll attract a lot of women to the show, and he's British. What more can you say? I mean, I could have went for Danny Dyer. Danny Dyer would have been awesome.
No.
Danny Dyer.
Tom Ellis is a very charismatic actor, isn't he? He's around 40, 41 years of age, I would say. Obviously very physically fit. He's got a fan base. 4-5 years on Lucifer. Is it, Gary? How long has that been going?
5 seasons. 5 seasons. I believe it's the last. Mrs. Nerdrotic loves the show. I like the comic book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like the comic book, the show, but he's really good in it, though.
Right. He is.
Yeah. And I can see him being the Doctor as well. So, but that's just me.
Physicality. He's got the charisma. Obviously, he's very, very dark. He's not the blue-eyed boy that David Tennant's Doctor was. He's not as probably not as actually he's probably prettier than Matt Smith, but he's more conventionally good looking. He looks pure, and I think that's probably the conflict that works with Lucifer. I've not seen the show, but I suspect it's that balance, the sort of, I suppose, the classical hero's good looks with the demonic persona, Sarah.
He can play bad and he can play good, and when he gets really angry, it's a good performance if you ever watch Lucifer. So the Doctor has that dark side to him, so I think he's perfect to play the Doctor. I mean, as I said, in my opinion, he's perfect because he'd attract a lot of the young women, and he would attract the main core of the Doctor Who fandom because he's a guy. Coming after Peter Capaldi, even though Peter Capaldi was very energetic, he did throw himself physically into that part. In fact, he threw himself into hospital as part of playing that part. Probably following that with an actor who was younger and who maybe wasn't going to find that quite as much of a physical challenge and a physical stretch. Is that something you view as important in your version of Doctor Who 2018, Ian? Yeah. As I said, I and a lot of people disagree with this, and I know Blue disagrees with me. I think they made the wrong choice when they cast Peter after Matt Smith, because everybody was used to a young Doctor, and suddenly they cast Peter. I'm not saying Peter's rubbish. I'm saying he's really good, and I really like him as the Doctor. But at that moment in time, they really made Doctor Who go backwards instead of forwards. You're
somebody, Ian, who really appreciates the sort of the classical roots of the character as well. How would you, you're the showrunner here. Tom may come to you with a few ideas of his own of what he want to wear, but what would you, say he turns up with a sort of biker jacket or a denim jacket or whatever. What would you insist that he wear if it was down to you?
It's hard because you have to try as a filmmaker. Obviously, as a producer, you look at every aspect of what if you're filming, including costumes. So you have to try things out on the actor to see what fits. You can't just say, right, he's going to be in this, and then you put it on him and he looks like crap. I mean, he always looks good in the suit. I would have him in the suit, but something strange about that suit, something odd looking about the suit. Maybe give him a flat cap. Who knows? Because flat caps are
something slightly strange.
Yeah, it was synonymous with England, and what's that all about? what?
That kind of flat cap, maybe. It's for anybody who can't. If you're listening on the podcast, you can't see it at the moment. We've got to give the people on YouTube something a little bit extra. Yeah, this is what you're talking about, isn't it? Isn't it, Ian? This is your vision of the Doctor. This is a picture of Ian Diaz himself.
So, Ian, you're just basically protecting yourself.
But yeah, I think he's perfect for the Doctor, as I said. And then there's Adrian Lester. He'd be perfect as well. So I wouldn't go wrong if I was a showrunner.
So remind people out there who maybe don't know who Adrian Lester is. What has he appeared in? Where do you know him from?
Was he in Hustle?
He was in Pride and Prejudice. Oh, no, he wasn't in Pride and Prejudice. I'm thinking of someone else. Yes, I can see that actually.
And he would be the first Black Doctor, and he really has a great personality and he's a great actor. He's up there.
Is Adrian Lester an actor you're aware of, Ballstrick?
I recognize him. I can't pinpoint the movie, but I know I've seen him before.
Yeah, I've seen the face. I can't pinpoint it either.
He was actively petitioning for the role. I'd say between 2011 and say 2013. Would you say, Sarah? Do you remember when he went on BBC Breakfast and stated that he wanted the role?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
No chance now, though.
So who would you go for then out of Tom Ellis and Adrian Lester, Ian? Who would get your final vote?
Tom Ellis. I'd go for Tom Ellis.
You'd still go for Tom Ellis. I see. Okay, so let's moving on. We've got 2 Doctors down. So Andrea, back in 2017, you're the showrunner. Who would you cast? Where would you
Mega
go?
took my doctor. I was going to say, yeah, it was Tom Ellis.
Okay.
So it's one of the things that me and him actually agree on. I think he would be a great doctor. I think in Lucifer, he's very devilish. And I like that. He's got that little gleam in his eye, looking for trouble. That's the kind of doctor that I think that after Capaldi that we needed. We actually needed a change, even though I love Peter Capaldi. Or Ian stole my idea. Craig Ferguson. Because I think it would be such a hoot for Peter Capaldi to regenerate to Craig Ferguson. I think that would be awesome. And I think he would do really well in the role. Plus, he's a fan.
And why do you think that would be particularly awesome for the two gentlemen in question, Andrea? I would imagine you know this.
Because they have such a history together, and they run a band together called the Dream Boys, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Between the two, I think I would still pick Tom Ellis.
I'm going to be really awkward now because I disagree. Tom Ellis is too good looking, like too conventionally good looking. And I always thought, to me, the Doctor, he was somebody attractive, but not, odd.
Everybody.
It is totally fine to disagree. I'm totally fine with that.
She's always causing trouble. Are you kidding me?
It doesn't stop, does it? Everywhere she goes.
Never stops.
So come on then, Bolstrek. This is your time to shine. Who would you cast as your Doctor?
I actually gave this a lot of thought, and I'm not going with the younger Doctor. Now, the reason I made this choice is this actor stars in another one of my all-time favorite British TV series. This is a drama series, and it had this choice had never occurred to me until yesterday, when I actually happened to be watching a Blu-ray of one of the more recent series of this show. So this actor, and he has appeared in Doctor Who before. He was in the classic series. In 2017, would have been 55. So same age when Capaldi was cast, same age as when Hartnell was cast. It may seem an unorthodox decision, but when you think about it, it works perfectly. So drum roll, I have cast Martin Clunes. Doc Martin himself.
Wow, that is a very interesting choice.
That is very interesting.
That's very brave.
He's very different, isn't he, to Peter Capaldi, his persona. How would you imagine he'd play the Doctor? Because his roles are so varied.
Yeah, well, if you look at the actor himself versus Doc Martin, they're completely different people. Doc Martin is a full-on character.
Yeah.
But Clunes can also do comedy, as we've seen in Men Behaving Badly. But what I would do is I would take, because if you look at the character of Doc Martin, that could easily be the Doctor with slight modifications. So I would keep the aloofness, definitely the eccentricity. What I would add is some empathy, because Doc Martin, one of the traits of the character is he pretty much plays it as a person with Asperger's. So I would keep that, but I would tone it down a bit. I would add some empathy. In terms of how he would be dressed, to be honest, I would keep the suit. I might change the color just so he doesn't look exactly like Doc Martin.
So a contemporary suit, you keep him very much in the 21st century.
Yeah, I'd be going back to the suit. But as everybody here, I'm assuming, Gary, have you ever watched Doc Martin?
I have not watched Doc Martin.
Okay, so Gary.
Yeah,
I'm assuming everybody else. I've
seen bits and pieces.
Okay, so for anybody in the chat and anybody watching, if you haven't watched Doc Martin, you need to watch this show. Now, it is a drama comedy. It's been running since 2004.
Are they standalone episodes, or is it like a running saga sort of thing? Is it?
It's a running saga. And now they do seasons every 2 years. So the most recent season was last year, which is season 9. Season 10 has been unofficially confirmed. But watch the first season.
Had Sigourney Weaver in it, didn't there?
She was in it second last season, which was actually a surprise. It wasn't even announced. It was just out of nowhere. I'm like, holy crap, Sigourney Weaver's on this show.
Well, she was on. What's his name? Graham Norton. and both of them were on. And she said that she loved the show. She wouldn't mind being on it.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, she's on it.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going. I'm going with exactly the same age. Although he's 58 now, but he actually looks younger than Capaldi. So that would be my choice. And I've been watching Doc Martin since around 2004 when they aired it on PBS. So, like I said, I've been watching the show for years, and it didn't occur to me until yesterday that, my God, Clunes would make an amazing Doctor. So that is my choice. So I guess I'm showing my bias towards older doctors again.
Sorry, I'm being.
Have you got an interloper?
I've got an interloper, yeah.
just been covered there. Yes, with Martin Clunes, of course, he was nearly the part of Jackson Lake in the next Doctor. That was written for Martin Clunes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he has actually been in Doctor Who in the dim and distant past. In fact, I think, wasn't it his first ever role?
Yes, it was.
Right?
It was Snake Dance.
Yes.
As a very young actor. So Doctor Who has sort of followed him around. In fact, I was speaking to somebody quite recently who was that? If you're watching this and you told me this story, I do apologise. Somebody told me quite recently they went and they met Martin Clunes at an event. What was it to do with? I can't quite remember. But yeah, they met. Oh, it was Paul Mount. It was Paul Mount. He met Paul Mount from TV Zone, from the TV Zone podcast and Starburst. Hello, Paul, if you're watching. Yes, Paul went and met him. And he said, even though this event was a launch for Martin Clunes' latest sitcom, that this small venue, open to press and a few hand-picked sort of journalists, was besieged with Doctor Who fans. And they were getting him to sign just anything Doctor Who related. And Martin Clunes was completely bemused, Bolstrek. But yeah, it was so long ago he can barely remember being in it. But yeah, I think that's a strong pick. I think the British public would love that. He's a bit of a national treasure. Yeah. And as you say, a softer actor after Peter Capaldi. I would never have seen that one coming. I think that's a great
similarities though, because the version that I'm looking at is similar to Capaldi in the fact that, and this also goes into the Doc Martin character, as neither of them are really capable of recognizing human emotion, human attitudes. You had Capaldi with flashcards, so I would keep that. But Clunes would be a slightly more human version of the Doctor, so it's kind of sort of at the halfway level. But that's what I want to see, Martin Clunes. So Doctor number 13, Martin Clunes.
I partly expected you to go for this person here.
I have gone with that in the past.
I know.
But I actually had two runners up. One was Martin Sheen, so I'm glad I didn't go with that one first. And Olivia Colman was my other runner up.
Yes, we're now looking at a picture of Olivia Colman in, what would you call that? Is that a snood, would you say, Andrea? Is that what she's wearing?
I don't know what that is. I have no clue what that is.
No, but I decided not to go with Coleman because people know that's one of my choices for the Doctor. I've been going on about it for years. So I'm like, I'm going to do something other than Coleman.
You were doing a Ryan Johnson. You were trying to.
Yes, I'm expectations.
I know. Yeah. So, Gary, what have you given this much thought over the last few years in your parallel universe? Who would you have cast to follow Peter Capaldi as the Doctor?
I have given it thought. I mean, not a lot, but I'm going to go back to when we were talking about it. I did a video. This is before my channel was up and coming at that time. And I did a video on like my top 5 picks. I can never pronounce his name, but
I know who it is now.
Yeah. I've talked about it forever. And I have a runner-up, and I have an American pick, and I have a Canadian pick too, which I did there, which I never would happen. I understand that. We got to keep it British.
I could do a whole show about American picks, Gary.
Oh yeah, you and we'll talk. I'll tell you who my American pick was, and I even it's not a joke either. But I picked Tweedle Ejiofor. Yes. I can never pronounce his name. Based on what he did in Serenity. I love the movie Serenity, and I think we were completely ready for a Black Doctor. Still think we're ready for a Black Doctor.
Superb.
And I just dug his work in it. This was prior, I haven't even seen 12 Years a Slave, so it's not, I'm a terrible person, I guess. But based on his work, that was my pick. My second pick was Aidan Turner, but he's too pretty. I'm with Starry. You can't have a pretty Doctor. It's got to be a British. I mean, first off, like a British character actor. I would definitely go younger. I agree with Ian, and this is just from an American perspective, folks. Mm-hmm. So I'm an American Doctor Who fan. I want British people to make decisions for the show forever. I do not ever want an American influence in this whatsoever. So, but I just think Peter Capaldi, who I loved as the Doctor, he had great speeches, he had great moments, but unfortunately he did not have great writing. And he started turning off, and it wasn't fair, but he started turning off a lot of the younger American audiences, especially with the kids, because he was just too old, and that's just a fact. And a lot of people just got turned off by it. If they would have stuck with it and the writing would have been better, I think things would have been different. Capaldi certainly grew on me, but that was what I heard from a lot of the younger audience that I had spoken with at the time when it happened. People were very turned off on it. I understand the decision making behind it. You already had 2 young Doctors, and
they had to
so
wait
on
over
and so
a year.
forth.
They had to wait over a year to actually see him on screen as well, to let that sort of kind of prejudice and resistance sit with them for 12 months.
Yeah, and honestly, if it was the BBC's decisions that screwed over Capaldi, you guys have all talked about it.
Yeah.
And the year breaks between seasons, that killed the show. That killed any momentum for the show. And then, of course, the Jodie decision happened, and the writing happened. And I don't know what you guys have heard, but the delay between this season and next season's getting longer every day.
Let's hope it's permanent.
I've heard a bunch of stuff over the last month or so, and things have probably changed even more drastically over the last week, let's just say. But that would have been my pick. And I think, and I'm sure there's somebody better out there. But that I still would like to see. He's too big of an actor now to take the role, but I think it would be good to bring people back. They're going to have to do a lot of other work, like a lot of retconning, but
Chiwetel Ejiofor, is that right?
Yeah,
anybody?
I think so.
I did know how to pronounce this a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen him in anything for a while, so it's kind of left me. But I'm interested in the Aidan Turner suggestion, Gary, because I've always liked Aidan Turner, and for a long time I sort of had him down a Doctor as well. But you see, in my head, because I'm a James Bond fan as well, I've kind of put him in a little annex where I'm convinced he should be the next James Bond. And as you know, because he can't be both, I think purely in my head canon, I'd sort of rule him out as the Doctor. But I think he would be a terrific Doctor. I think either of those actors would be fantastic.
I would respectfully disagree with that, because Aidan Turner is not manly enough to me to be Bond, but he's perfect for Doctor Who. And I think he's got that kind of foppish fun feel about him, and I think he's very Paul McGann-ish in a way. I would definitely costume him in something very similar to what Paul McGann started in, but he wouldn't be a terrible Bond. But I don't know. I like Bond to be straight up.
There was an Agatha Christie adaptation over a couple of Christmases ago where Aidan Turner played a really conflicted character, really dark character. Was it and then they were none? Was that the one, Sarah? I know they've made 4 or 5, haven't they, over the last few Christmases? And that was what really sort of switched me onto it, because he spent the last 4 or 5 years playing Poldark, who he's supposed to be a tormented character, isn't he? But I don't know. But I've had several actors who I've clung on to. I imagine you all have, over the last few years, to the point where, as Bolstrek was saying, he's banged on about Olivia Colman for so long, it's become a standing joke, everybody knows. And it was the same with me with Patterson Joseph for a while. There's a flat cap Doctor for you as well, Ian. He's never out of a flat cap. But just lately, and I was telling you about this earlier on, wasn't I, Andrea? Yeah. Because I have rediscovered the John Pertwee era lately, and my appreciation for that version of the character, and I've become a little fixated on somebody that I had always ruled out as being
I knew somebody was going to bring
Richard Ayoade. Indulge me for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, go on then.
Here's why I like Richard, and this is something that I could never see this for a few years. It didn't appeal to me at all. It's the John Pertwee thing. I saw some pictures really quite recently. He's Sonic. You can't Sonic my pick away. The reason why I like Richard Ayoade is I saw some pictures of him recently for the very first time, not as Moss, not pulling this kind of expression, but sort of behind the scenes photographs where it was just Richard being Richard. And I thought, wow, that's the very first time I've ever seen Richard Ayoade playing himself. And I remembered that John Pertwee, back when he was cast in 1970, John Pertwee had asked Barry Letts, when they approached him to play the part, how would I play it? Because he didn't have the faintest idea, because he'd hidden under a green umbrella his entire life. He'd never, ever played himself. And Richard Ayoade is somebody who I don't think we've ever seen him play himself, not once. So this is why I've started to wonder now. And this is a complete reversal, because he's always switched me off. Now I'm starting to wonder what kind of Doctor Richard Ayoade would make. That's just me.
And he's been rumored several times.
Yeah.
He was rumored when they cast 11, when they cast 12, and
he's wrong.
And
he's
then
wrong.
we're 2017. So yeah,
he has to wear those glasses. He's blind without it, and his face doesn't. When somebody wears glasses for a long time. No, but I'm just saying.
Lenses.
I'm just saying that when people's work, because we've never known him without his glasses. From the It Crowd to every quiz show you've seen him on. Right? Imagine if he takes his glasses off, it'd be completely weird. But the thing is, though, what you see is him. That's him. In real life.
I'm not sure that it is, and that's why when I think of how would I get him to play it, I would say what Barry Letts said to John Pertwee, and I'd say play it as yourself, and whatever he could bring out, I think he could surprise people. I see something else. It's taken me years to see it, but I think I finally see it. Sarah, what do you think?
Yes, he's not right.
No, do you know what? I think a few years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think just looking at now, he's just going to think, "Oh, I'm not getting involved in all that."
And also, he's too intelligent as well. He's very, very intelligent, and I don't think he wanted to.
These are two other actors. You are then, Ian. These are two other actors that I like as well. Nigel Harman and Daniel Rigby.
No, none of them. Nope.
Nigel Harman's about 40, isn't he? He's mostly a stage actor. He's played a good mixture of parts. I think he's got a great intensity about him. And Daniel Rigby's mostly a theatre actor, serious drama. I'd love to see what he could bring out in the role. There was a few rumours about him a few years ago, and I've never been able to quite leave the idea behind. I think he's a classically trained actor, but he can do comedy
too. When he's talking about American actors, if oh my God, who'd be perfect? Jeff Goldblum. Man, if he was the Doctor, it would blow it out of the freaking world. It really would. Even now.
You've already picked two. You can't pick a third.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, Jeff Goldblum.
I actually think that could actually work. We agree again. That's amazing. So I actually think that could work.
Looking like that.
Yeah.
Honorary mention for Mr. Jeff Goldblum, simply because I got the picture ready. Okay, so that's Doctors. Next, I thought we'd talk about the TARDIS for a minute, because obviously the Doctor and the TARDIS are completely linked here. They've got this symbiotic link. They're connected. But after regenerations, TARDISes have a habit of exploding, don't they? And you've all picked different people. Nobody's gone with Capaldi. Would the TARDIS explode in your version of Doctor Who as well, Gary, at the start? Would you give them a fresh TARDIS interior or even exterior? Where would you go with that?
I would not have it explode again. It explodes all the time. Just have it a nice casual change. That's what I would do. I would actually don't show it completely, but show it redecorating a little bit around the Doctor, just little pieces of it. Don't answer too much, but that would have been different for me. So no exploding TARDISes. Stop it.
They've played that hand a little too much, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah. It's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic thing to do, but they did it. They've done it three times. Yeah. So it's a bit much.
What do you think, Andrea? Is that a spent force now?
It's overused. It really is, and it doesn't need to. The TARDIS doesn't need to change every time and redecorate itself every time. Back in the day, we had the same white circles for years and years. I mean, that's perfectly fine.
I would have loved to. Yeah, go back to that.
Yeah, go back to that. I agree.
That was my choice.
That would be.
So, what Bowles trick would you like change the lighting in the TARDIS console? Maybe if you're keeping the same set, change the lighting to suit the new performance in any way.
What I would do is what we were just talking about, because I haven't really been a fan of any of the new series TARDIS redesigns. All 4 of them, well, 4.5. I would go back to the white roundels. Bring down the lighting a little bit. It was overlit because of the way it had to be filmed. So I bring down the lighting a little bit. The console, it would be similar to the 80s console. I would go back to the, clunky typewriters and things like that, because that's already been done to death.
Ian's going to explode any minute now.
No, we need something different, because every design since the show came back has been the same thing, just random bits. I would do similar to what Peter Davison did in the 5 Doctors, which was a modern redesign. So they had modern computer components for the time. I would replace those with touch screens. So just kind of keeping in the tradition of the original white TARDIS, where it would upgrade slightly over time, although I don't know how many different versions there were during John Pertwee's run. They changed the set every time they erected it. But yeah, so I would do that, just modernize it a little bit. But I would go back to white TARDIS, roundels, white corridors. I don't know, maybe I'd bring back the abandoned hospital. No.
Yes, see if you can find a Sontaran roaming around at the back.
I would go back to the classics, and I would stick with it, and just minor upgrades. So that's why I'm going with the touch screens, because I'm basing it off of the reintroduction or redesign in the 5 Doctors.
Yeah, I think that's very much my choice as well. I'd always go back to, if not bright white, then certainly a sort of off white, simply because I'm an old fart. Andrea, have you seen this? We've got somebody called the Talons of Wayne Chiang here, who, unsurprisingly, with their love of Victoriana here, wants to go for the wooden console room, the secondary console room. But what would you pick for your Doctor, your Craig Ferguson Doctor?
Oh, for the Craig Ferguson Doctor? I probably wouldn't change the TARDIS at all from Peter Capaldi. I probably just leave it alone. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I liked it.
I thought it was perfect.
He could raid the same drinks cabinet, couldn't he?
Yeah.
Ian, how do you feel about the TARDIS?
I agree with both Drek and Gary. I would have it white, but not so bright. I would have the round things back, definitely the round things. But I would have the console floating. I wouldn't have the console attached to anything. It'll just be in the middle floating, with the thing at the top that goes up and down. And I agree with Bostrek, the touch panels and stuff. I would have that too. But I would also have I'll also have the Doctor change it, because he can just flick a switch apparently, and the room will change. Yeah, it'll be interesting. If he did. Do you know what we haven't seen? We haven't seen the TARDIS change the inside by being inside. Now that would be interesting. If the Doctor
would be spectacular.
Yeah,
that could be
right, but they don't have.
If he finishes his adventure, and the last thing he does is he says he changes the TARDIS, he presses the switch, and everything around him starts changing. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
that'd be fucking awesome.
Do you think the BBC would actually green light the budget for that, though?
I don't know.
You've got to stay on budget, everybody. Got to stay on budget. Vanessa here likes the levers and the buttons. She likes it to go really old school.
Gotta have that like that.
It would be awesome.
He likes most of it because of the copper, and he loves copper. Sarah, where do you stand on levers and switches and buttons and buzzers and
all of them? I love the buttons and the gates.
The kitchen sink.
I would go, but I want the McGann TARDIS. I want that Victorian H.G. Wells style.
Straight for that.
I want the wooden console, just because it's been such a long time. I can't believe you put that on.
Well, it could be. You could go back to the Baker era, where there were basically 2 TARDIS console rooms.
Yes,
and you could do alternates.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
The other TARDIS that I really like, I like the coral one from the Tennant era and the Eccleston era. I did like the tiny bit we saw of the the handy TARDIS that was in the Timeless Children. You know, the one that she ran into at the end.
No,
I did like that.
It's
and I
a
was
valid answer.
Rubbish. Come on.
Oh no!
But it looked really nice, and I was just like, "Why have you brought it back for
Really
this?"
should have been a council flat with kids running around.
I can certainly see, Sarah, your Michael Sheen Doctor. I can see him around a McGann-style console in that kind of steampunky sort of environment. That very much does fit with the whole aesthetic. I can totally see that. Yeah. So we've got our Doctors, we've got our TARDISes. Fitting them out. You've got a huge TARDIS there, Sarah. So I suppose the most obvious question is how many bodies are going to be inside it? We're looking at the companions now. What do you feel about companions? Because there's still the belief, isn't it, that the model of the one Doctor, one companion is the dream ticket. That's where the best combinations of. Is that something that you subscribe to? Is that the dynamic you would go with, or would you pick 2 or 3?
So I would say, just the one companion to start with, and then maybe bring another one in like we did with Mickey and Rory, and do it that way. Because I do like the dynamic between 3, because I think there's more tension there. But I think just to start with three people, I think it's too much.
Where would the Doctor sort of pick them up from? Would it be male or female from our planet or another planet, or the past or the future?
From this planet, I think it's really important to have somebody from you need that touchstone. I would go with a female companion. I think that's the dynamic that works best. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah. And then maybe bring in a male one. And I thought that worked. You can see it with Sarah and Harry. I just think that kind of dynamic works best. But that would be it. That'd be like 2 maximum.
There's a lot of people in the chat saying one Doctor, one companion. That's not a given anymore with the Doctor.
Right.
Get 2, or maybe
only
even 3.
15,000.
With the Doctors now, animal, vegetable, or mineral. That'll be the next question.
But a Doctor can be an animal now, can't she?
Yep.
She can be an animal or a vegetable or a...
Tom Baker can have that cabbage that he always wanted.
So go on then, Ian. What would your TARDIS team be like? What would you have a fam, or would you just have a combination?
Rubbish. One companion. And you know what? Right, I reckon it should be a replicant of some kind, someone that looks human but not quite human, to help the Doctor out when there's things that need to be lifted or people need to be beaten up. Maybe this female replicant that's not quite human.
2 companions in one there, very clever.
Yeah, exactly. Can help them, because they've never done that. All it is you always get someone from the 20th century for some reason, and they're in England. The whole world they're from England. So you always get someone like that, because that's why I like Leela so much, because she was from another planet and she was very rough.
I know why you like Leela.
Well, that too. But that's why I liked it. Anyway,
so would you put them in animal skins as well, Ian? And what gender would they be?
Female. Definitely.
would definitely be a female. Or would
because it has to be, right? Because that's the tradition of Doctor Who, isn't it? I mean, they had Jamie and he was cool, but usually though everybody associates the Doctor with a female. It makes sense. And also I would have Romana as the companion.
Yes.
Oh, specifically, you'd bring somebody back. You'd bring somebody back from the past.
Definitely, Romana is the equal to the Doctor.
Strong. Go on then, Andrea. Why do you disagree with this?
I know. I agree with it. I want him to get out of my head. I'm serious. I swear to God, get out of my head.
We have a great suggestion here, Ian. We've got Katie Sheridan as a companion.
Katie, I'm sure she'd be happy.
There you go, Katie. It's a vote of confidence there from Daniel Lee.
Yeah. She should be.
Go on, Andrea. Where would you go then? Let's get Ian out of your head. There's got to be room for somebody else bobbling around.
One companion, someone that was in the classic era. Oh. And that would be Romana. That's why I said, Ian, get out of my head.
You haven't got a second. Go on.
Yeah, hopefully the cast choice that I have isn't the same as his, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yep.
Interesting. And would you view them as being from the past or the future? Where would they hail from? What would be the dynamic with you've got Craig Ferguson there as the Doctor?
Well, I would probably put Tom. I would probably put Tom Ellis because I said that. But yeah, I would. Craig Ferguson would be fine too if Tom Ellis wasn't available. But I would probably bring back Layla Ward for a couple of episodes and then have her regenerate.
Oh, that'd be good.
That is a really good idea. What do you think of that, Bolstrek, as a classic companion? Was Romana somebody that could be brought back in that way to do different things with her?
It would work. I always thought a Romana spin-off series would have been a brilliant idea. And she is a Time Lord, so you could have a literal sister show to Doctor Who. But my casting, so female, older, so between the ages of 35 and 45, mainly because I think Donna Noble worked so well.
Yeah.
In terms of when I would place them, it would have to be British. Or she'd have to be British, not current year, not 2020. No, honestly, I don't want the show taking place in this era. Cool. There's just too much temptation for, the era that we're pretending hasn't happened yet. Yeah. So I would place it in the 80s or 90s, probably 90s. I don't know because I'm biased. So 90s. And when you have the Earthbound shows, it takes place in the 90s, not current year. I don't want current year going anywhere near this show. So that's my pick.
That's an interesting idea to pick a companion up from the recent past rather than going back like a Jamie or a Victoria. Somebody from a slightly more innocent
we also
age.
didn't have Doctor Who in the 90s aside from the movie, so that period of Earth history has never really been explored. So I think that would work.
Wow.
Lots of opportunities for a Guardians of the Galaxy style soundtrack with lots of 90s music.
No, we're not doing that.
That worked so well in Captain Marvel, didn't it, Gary?
No, I'm banning any popular music, present or future. I've got the run. I've brought Murray Gold back, so he's scoring this.
Yeah.
Oh,
he should be given a raise immediately.
Yes, and an apology.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we all miss Murray Gold more than a little. Gary, where would you go with the companions? What would they be British? Would they be American? You're talking about American doctors. Would you go American?
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that. I would let's go Canadian. Let's make a
thanks, Gary.
let's make a compromise. No, I would do okay. So I'm formulating this in my head. I'm not very good at picking up stories here, but what I would do, because I'm going to wrap this around. I'm a big Captain Jack fan. By the way, I love bringing back Layla to regenerate. That would be so great.
Great idea.
Great spot on idea. But I would do something with a female companion. And she would be from a near future that is blocked out in the Doctor's head. There's a big mystery. There's a big pocket of time that the Doctor doesn't know. So we have a companion that knows things the Doctor doesn't know. And it would be all centered around a third companion, Captain Jack, and he would be the antagonist through the series. It would be the Doctor versus Captain Jack. Captain Jack has betrayed the Doctor. He might have good reasons for it, but think of it as a Professor X Magneto kind of thing.
I like that.
Throughout the entire season.
Rogue time agent, rogue Torchwood, rogue Jack generally. It just works, doesn't it, Sarah? You're a big Jack fan. That doesn't set your teeth on edge. That the idea?
No, I love that. I love John Bowman.
I never thought Gary had an imagination. What's going on there?
I know, right?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of Lucy Miller, and I've seen that in the chat. A couple of people have mentioned Lucy Miller from the Big Finish audios because she was part of a witness protection program, wasn't it, Bolstrek, that she was placed with the Doctor by the Time Lords, and she couldn't remember everything about her life, could she? I can't quite remember. It's been a few years.
I haven't listened to it for a few years. I already know who might work. Colin Baker's current on Big Finish. Why can't I remember her name? He's got the two companions, the younger one.
Okay.
Flip Jackson.
Yes, I love Flip. I could, if I go younger, Flip.
Younger. It's very, very interesting.
You know what? It's
coming
interesting.
together now.
Everybody has a different idea of what the Doctor, and I find it fascinating.
Started from similar places.
Sorry, apart from
Started from similar places, now they're going off a little bit.
She doesn't know I've been using this to suck her brain.
You probably have.
Go on, sorry, Gary. What was that?
No, it's still people have been kind of overdoing it lately and doing it wrong, but I do like the unreliable narrator, and we can't always assume that the Doctor's on the right side of history on this one either. So you could play with it a lot of ways. It's very comic book, but that's where my imagination comes from. So,
and do you know he used to own a comic book shop?
Oh yeah, we were going to bring that up.
No.
We were going to challenge that narrative.
But the comic book stylings, they did sort of try. I think Stephen Moffat was trying to do that with the Capaldi Doctor. I think he viewed him almost as I think he viewed Capaldi's Doctor as the ultimate Marvel Universe version of something like a Colin Baker or a John Pertwee. I think he was trying to put elements like that in there, and it didn't quite gel. It didn't quite work. I don't think Stephen Moffat understands comic books enough. I think he, like several ideas that Moffat had, he sort of picks them up and then puts them back down again. But as a way, I think as a source material, it's certainly something that's worth sort of picking up and staying with. I think Andrew Cartmore tried it a little bit with underground comics in the late 80s. He was very much into counterculture and 2000 AD and titles like that. Back at your territory again there, Ian.
Yeah.
But all of this stuff, all these your plot line there, Gary, with Captain Jack, I think that's really potent. And Andrea, you've talked about regenerating Romana, that could play into something. But because the fact is, you could put who you like in a show, can't you? Whatever show, Doctor Who or any show, as we're currently seeing now, if the material's no good, if the right people aren't writing it, it doesn't really matter who's standing there saying the lines. So I think we're going to move on to writers now. I'd like you to come up with, and I'm going to come to you for this, Sarah. I want two writers from you that you would approach. One, somebody from Doctor Who's past who's written for the show in the past, and you either feel they're like a safe pair of hands, or maybe you feel they never got a chance to show their best work. And one sort of pick of a writer that you're aware of on other shows anywhere in the world who you think would be a great pick for writing Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. Well, returning writer, I'd like to see Matt Jones back, because he wrote my favourite story of season 2, which was The Impossible Planet and Satan Pit, and he never seemed to have come back.
I was just going to say, I can't remember him coming back, and I can't imagine why, because that was a big episode, wasn't it?
It was a big. I know he has done some Big Finish, but I don't think he's ever come back. He's not come back onto screen. But yeah, I think that's the perfect, you got horror there, you got your sci-fi, you got your emotional stuff, you got your morality stuff. It would just, Base Under Siege, you just got everything there. And a new writer, so I'm getting distracted by the cat. She just has to join it. For some of the Big Finish writers, maybe Johnny Morris, Jonathan Morris.
Yes.
I really like his work. I think, there's so many writers that go on to Big Finish. We know it where, we've had Robert Shearman do both types of medium. So, yeah, I'd like to see what Johnny Morris could do on screen.
You talk about Big Finish. I suppose somebody that wouldn't be too far away from people's heads could be this guy. I'd imagine somebody's going to suggest him in the chat in a minute. He's probably written more Doctor Who than even Stephen Moffat at this point. Nick Briggs, the man who's been involved in Doctor Who fandom, of course, from making audio dramas and fronting documentaries right back in the 80s. And I think he's been with Big Finish, yes, right from the beginning. You'd think that he would be a shoo-in now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he could work as showrunner.
Yeah.
So, Bolstrek, which writers would you look to? One returning from who's written for Doctor Who before, and one person you've got your eye on.
I am bringing back Gareth Roberts. He has written some great stories. And this is an unorthodox choice, but I was thinking about somebody that's good on character.
And I thought that, Sarah, you were going to go for Gareth Roberts, so I did get this prepared. And
I did think of him first, but then I remembered about Matt Jones.
So remind me, Bolstrek, which scripts did Gareth Roberts write for people out there who were less familiar?
So Gareth Roberts has written The Shakespeare Code, brilliant episode. Unicorn and the Wasp, brilliant episode. Planet of the Dead, hate the Doctor's temporary companion, but good show. Other than that, great episode. I am probably one of the few people that actually really likes The Lodger and Closing Time.
Did you read any of his New Adventures books back in the 90s as well when he was first starting out? Yeah,
it's been on my list. I got many things on my list.
He created his own race of monsters and everything. I think I was really surprised that we never got to see those on Doctor Who. Who would be second writer then, Bolstrick?
Okay, so when you asked me this question, I was thinking of somebody who's good on character. So I want somebody who can create compelling characters. What show in the past 20 years has had some of the best characters and character development we've ever seen? And then that brought me to Vince Gilligan, Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd be able to afford him. Yeah,
you're showrunner as well. Remember, Bolstrick, you're showrunner. So if you wanted to get Vince to write, say, 3 or 4, if you could save some money and write the rest yourself.
Oh, yeah. There you go. I'll just Robert Holmes it.
Yeah. So what do you see in his writing? Because he's got a great way with dialogue, hasn't he, Vince?
Great way. It's in terms of dialogue, he's up there. The best writer of dialogue that Doctor Who ever had was Robert Holmes. We need somebody who excels at writing character, who excels at building character. Is there any stronger character than Walter White in terms of development, in terms of understanding the character, in terms of character transformation?
Yeah,
it is very wishful thinking, because we'd have to triple the budget and just allocate everything to the script, and I don't know, just use stick figures to play them out. But again, we haven't talked about money. We haven't talked, and so yeah, that's my choice. Runner-up, if I wanted to bring somebody back, my runner-up to Gareth Roberts was actually Stephen Moffat, to write one of his one-off episodes, not to write arcs, because sorry, Moff, but you kind of suck at that. But his one-off episodes that aren't Christmas specials, outside of A Christmas Carol, are absolutely brilliant. So that would be my runner-up to bring somebody back.
Ian, have you got any writers that spring to mind for you? People that you may know, even in the industry, that you feel would be great for Doctor Who?
No, I would definitely. I agree with Bolstrick. I'll definitely bring back Moff. He'll do one standalone episode. I'd even bring back RT if he wanted to do it. You have to respect the fans. You know the fans would go crazy if Moff was writing an episode and RT was writing an episode. Make sure the story was solid and it had a beginning, middle, and an end. I like that. I'd also like to. The son of Stephen King wanted to write for, and I saw his show. I can't remember.
Lock and Key. Yeah,
Lock and Key. And I think, why
very
not
well done.
Yeah, why not get him? He'll bring a fresh perspective over the show, and he's a fan as well. So he'd be really good, And then I would try and pick writers that are good at drama, and just try and get a good table of writers.
It's strange, isn't it, when you can have writers of this caliber, and it's not the first time. The Joe Hill business I'm talking about, where they express an interest in writing for the show, and some of them, Joe Hill did write in, didn't he? He approached the BBC, and he's not the first to do that. He probably won't be the last either.
So even though I don't know Stephen King's son, but I read what he said. He really wants to write for Doctor Who. When he said that, you can feel the passion, even though it's words on a page. So
his rebuttal was really rude, and I think it's really it's xenophobic. Really, that's what it came across.
Rather than trying to get writers who trying to get a story out of them, it's like trying to get blood from a stone. And you do get the feeling that's happened with several writers, and this has been in the classic show as well. Come to think of it, who you can see they've persevered with.
It's all about passion at the end of the day, with the people on the table to the showrunner to everyone, You've got to know about Doctor Who as well. That's why I said if I was a showrunner, I would never trust. Obviously, I would want to lead, but I would be listening to everyone. I'd even go as far as to have some big thing with the fans and have a big Q&A with the fans and say, let's figure out what you guys want from a new Doctor Who.
A Doctor Who fans town hall. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Gary?
Well, that's what I would do. I would have this huge. So in some Comic-Con somewhere, I would have one, and say, and I have a couple of stars on.
Do you think that's feasible, Gary, as a way of sort of asking the public which writers they'd like to see? Would you approach comic book writers, for example, somewhere like a comic?
Oh, absolutely. That would be it. When it gets to my picks, there will be a comic book writer in there. But I think that's a great idea to have a convention, something for the BBC, finding a way to extend an olive branch. I wouldn't expect them to apologize for what's going on, but just maybe acknowledge it and go, listen, this show is about unity. Let's do something that unifies the fandom again and brings everybody together. And that way, you know, the thing is, the entertainment industry has rebranded over the last 5 years into the influence industry. And that's where these problems have started. And they've just stopped wanting to tell good stories or even caring. So I think that's a great idea. Seeing Capaldi at San Diego Comic-Con working the crowd outside, working the crowd, taking pictures. So that's the kind of enthusiasm we need again. So
also another thing I wanted to say was that the reason why I would have something in a Comic-Con is because once you're in front of a crowd, people suddenly have respect. Do you know what I mean? You know, you'll have some idiot that would call you a, you know, whatever, but he'll get ushered out, obviously. But they have to be respectful, and they have to talk in a respectful way. That's the way to move forward, in my opinion.
Andrea, have you got two writers in mind? Would you look
I do, and you could probably guess my new one because like I said, Ian's in my head. But I swear, we're
going to come to you next.
Yeah, controversially, and I know that he has kind of gone woke. He's sucking my brain. But I would bring back RTD. Because he was responsible for bringing back the show and actually bringing it back to the level of it being acceptable by classic fans. And I think we need to go back to that properly.
Even though he says continually that he's run out of stories to tell with Doctor Who, he could have fooled me. It's not, that doesn't wash with me. Does it? What do you think?
No, I don't think he's out of stories to tell. Absolutely not. Of course, just like Ian was saying, you know, I'm the showrunner, so if it gets too woke, I have a right to veto it. So,
I like this.
So yeah, and you know, obviously, I would bring back Moffat. I agree with that for a few stories. And you know, Joe Hill. I mean, I agree with Ian on that. I think he was really. That was a shame that BBC how they treated him. Because he's a huge fan, and you know, for them to act that way is just, you know, that's terrible in my opinion. And I think he could bring a fantastical approach that's been kind of missing from Doctor Who for a bit.
Big support for Neil Gaiman to return here in the chat after two episodes that he wrote in the Moffat era,
without interference this time.
Yeah, leave the man to it. He's a genius. Right. He's a genius. Just leave the man to it. Who else would you look at, Andrea? Maybe from outside of Doctor Who? Do you bring somebody in from left field?
Oh, just Joe Hill. I mean, he hasn't written for Doctor Who, and like I was saying, you know, I agree with Ian on that. I think, you know, I think we need to get back to a little bit of more fantastical Doctor Who, along with the sci-fi, because, you know, I used to kind of look at the Matt Smith era too fantastical, but I'm kind of hungry for that now. And I think that is something that is we need. We need that childlike, those childlike episodes that make us feel like kids. And I think that is something Doctor Who was founded on, and we need to get back to that.
It's a difficult balance to strike, isn't it? To gently scare kids rather than horrify them. And I think that there's untapped ground there in people who are maybe famous for writing for adults. I think, okay, you know, you look at, I know they spoke to J.K. Rowling. She nearly wrote, well, she was keen to write for the show, wasn't she? It probably was never particularly feasible. You know, that's a shorter distance. You know, it's not a huge reach, but a storyteller is a storyteller, no matter what medium or what genre. I think a lot of them can turn their hands, can't they, Gary? So hit us with your writers, and you've got one comic book writer and somebody else. Mm-hmm. Who would you pull in?
Well, as showrunner, I've talked about it forever. People are probably tired of hearing about it. Jamie Matheson, and because I love his 2 episodes. But Grant Morrison, I would pull in. He would, because you know what, he can get pretty postmodern and dark, but he can also pull it back and tell some really good stories. And I think he would be a great choice for doing a couple episodes here and there. Of course, bring back the Moff for a single episode. I did see an article recently. It was in the Sun, so I mean, it's probably not true. saying that Moffat saying he's done, like he's not going to write any more Doctor Who.
Well, I mean, Jamie Matheson is a superb choice, I feel. As you say, two scripts, both of them were pretty excellent. I mean, they're certainly among my favourites. Pitch perfect Doctor Who, and it is mystifying that he's never been back. But I'm fascinated by the idea of Grant Morrison. Like yourself, I'm a big comic books reader. I've been reading his stuff, his American stuff, certainly since Doom Patrol, and back at Marvel UK, he used to write the Doctor Who comic strip for Marvel UK. I think only 3 stories worth, but they were unique. Mm-hmm. They were quite high concept, considering that some of them ran to like 8 pages. But they were big ideas, and he put the kind of language that he put in the Doctor's mouth, and he revised. For example, Ian, there was a whole scene where he was sort of conceptualizing and thinking about sentient TARDISes and giving them voice 2-3 decades before Neil Gaiman did it in the Doctor's Wife on the TV. So Grant Morrison would be superb, and I would imagine he's another Scott. He is a huge Doctor Who fan. I think he'd lower his. Do you think he'd lower his rate, Gary, for Doctor Who?
You know what? Maybe he finally kind of hit it here in America a little bit with the show Happy. He'd been trying to break in forever. And that got messed up in the end. But I think he might.
Is that done now, Gary?
Yeah, it's done. It was only really meant to be 1 season. It was surprising that they got 2, and it was a bit of a stretch because it was based on 4 comic books, and it was supposed to be a Christmas story, about an evil Santa doing horrible things to kids, and an imaginary friend trying to save a girl, so she reaches out to a hitman. He reaches out. It's a little blue donkey voiced by Patton Oswalt.
I don't know about you. I found that blue donkey a bit scary.
It is a bit scary. It is. Yeah. The first season is great, but it's not for everyone.
No.
Had trouble sleeping that night, did you, Ian?
Yes. Yes, I did. But yeah.
Okay, so we've got our writers, but I was wondering, everybody, over the last few years, in fact, I think it was Stephen Moffat really that started playing with the format. Just very quickly, let's go back to you, Gary. Would you have a really, really strong arc of 2 and 3-part stories even, or would you go back to more standalones and keep chopping and changing?
No, I like the 2-part stories. So I wouldn't do 2 or 3. 2. I would do 2. But absolutely, positively, no 1-year breaks, no splits in seasons, nothing. I'm going to hire people who are going to get the work done, get it done on time, get it done under budget, because I'm that kind of an a-hole, and they're just going to finish, or they're not going to be around. I will let people go immediately if they're going to delay my show, make my show woke, or attack my audience. None of that. That's Doctor Who. I've seen shows twice as expensive get made quicker. I don't know what the holdup is. And Chris,
nobody does.
Frankly, I'm happy there's a delay now, but I wasn't before.
I think. I mean, the thing is, we're all taking it as read that the 45-minute episode format would stay, but there are people out there who are quite keen on the idea of going back to a 25-minute format.
I love that idea. I absolutely love that idea. Yes, do it. Ash versus Evil Dead did that.
I know.
Well, here's what you'd have to do.
Did they all drop at once though? Bowles Trick, those Ash versus the Evil Dead. No.
But the idea, if you want to do 25 episodes, it can't be, or 25-minute episodes. It can't be 1 a week. Drop 25-minute episodes, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So the same week.
I would do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, you can't do Friday, Saturday. I'd do 3 times a week.
Because that worked during the Peter Davison era in the UK. Didn't it? And if you remember, it used to be on twice a week, and although it's quashed the average season down, it ended in half the time. Obviously, the momentum and watching at school, even though it wasn't on Saturday, it gave Doctor Who this massive boost, this new lease of life, and we was talking about it in the playground, probably even more. Big,
and you had time to talk about it because they didn't drop it all at once. Dropping it all at once is just the dumbest thing you can do.
I know you don't agree with it. You don't agree with it.
I hate it. No, because you miss out on free advertising you cannot pay for. You have me talking about your show and you talking about their show in between each episode. Now, it doesn't have to be weekly, and I guess The Expanse is going to play with this. When they come out, they're going to do something like dropping an episode every couple days. which is a good compromise. I still don't think it's great. Game of Thrones would not be the show it was, despite its horrible end, if it didn't have people talking about it all week long, podcasts, watch parties. That's how your show gets immensely huge. Doctor Who had that and now has given it up, and they have to, I mean, it's an impossible task to get that going again, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't try. But the free average, again, you cannot pay for hundreds of YouTubers, just YouTubers, doing podcasts on your show that equals millions of views collectively, which is millions and millions of minutes watched. And that is putting it out in the atmosphere, putting it out in the universe constantly. And people are thinking about it at work and thinking about it during the week. And then they start obsessing about your show. And then they start theorizing about the plot instead of behind the scenes drama or whatever the hell is going on, because they're actually interested in it. Yeah. And then you become a superstar.
It would make a change to have people talking about what was actually on screen for a change, wouldn't it?
I totally agree.
After a few years, Andrea, you're somebody who, as we've talked about, you're deep diving into the classic show every week on your YouTube channel. So this idea of 25-minute episodes, obviously thinking about it and enjoying these classic episodes is one thing, but bringing it back, is this something that's working for you, or would you rather stick with the 45 minutes?
I would rather stick with the 45-50 minutes, and I love classic. I wouldn't want it a long continual story arc. I would like to go back to the classic formula of like 2 episodes, or basically, that is an arc, and then you go to the next one, which has nothing to do with just the 2 stories that you had before. I'm more interested in doing that. I think that's kind of more of an episodic approach. I don't know if that's the right term. But yeah, that's what I would do. But I would do 45 to 50 minutes, 10 episodes per season, and that's it. I wouldn't do any more episodes than that.
Best of both worlds. Ian, where do you sit with that? 25 or 45 minutes?
45 minutes. 45. I would have standalone stories apart from the climax. At the end of season, I'd have maybe a 4-parter or a 2-parter leading up to a cliffhanger.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And by this point in 2017, it wasn't broke, was it? It might have been bending a little, but it wasn't broke.
Right.
Sarah,
that's what I would do. Yeah. Sorry,
Sarah, what do you think as somebody who came to the show in 2005 and you sort of rolled out with the Russell T Davies era and this format, the faster format and those chunks? Is it a split allegiance for you? You're not quite sure where to go, or is it very clear in one direction?
I'm more used to the 45 minutes, but I want to get rid of the routine, because it kind of got, the first 4 seasons, you got a couple of 2-parters, and then you got your finale, and I want to shake that up. I want to go back to, you don't know what's going to happen that week. You don't know if it's going to be a 2-parter or a 3-parter. I always think like Utopia, where we thought it was just a standalone, and how that just turned and rocketed into this 3-part, epic thing at the end of series 3. And because they're always going to save the big thing till the end, and I want to bring it back to actually maybe this might happen halfway through, and I want that thing of it's not safe anymore. We've had it too safe for too long. It didn't help with Moffat not killing anyone, and then we've had this era where it's just been so boring and so safe. And I want the cliffhangers. Exactly. You've read my mind, Kelly.
I think everybody misses the cliffhangers, Kelly.
But if Doctor Who went to the streaming platform, which it probably will when the BBC dies, they can do anything they want. They could have an episode where it's 30, 20, 45 minutes. Because I've seen shows like that, on Netflix. There are shows that don't have a set time. And in fact, right, 40 Towers, the actual classic 40 Towers, never had a set time. Every episode was a different time.
It ended when John Cleese said it ended, didn't it? Because he spend about 4 years writing those scripts, and he went to them and said, "Look, if you want my scripts, you have them as they are. They are.
Exactly.
The timing is perfect. Every line is perfect. Take it or leave it." Because he knew that if they didn't have it, ITV back in the mid-70s would absolutely definitely have done. Now, I did wonder about this because I think obviously a generation of kids have grown up accepting that Doctor Who was structured in 2017, certainly in a very, very particular way that was more than the sum of its parts. that did hit us with the short bursts and those cold opens, which is a way of getting the cliffhangers back that I really liked and I've really missed. And I think Moffat was. No, actually, he was always right to the end capable of bringing out a couple of perlers, but then you'd got what was it? Yeah, Series 8. They were all standalones, weren't they? Apart from, I suppose you could say the last was a two-parter, sort of. But I think the show hasn't been helped. I mean, Gary, you said it earlier on about the big breaks, but I think messing with the format as well to the extent that they did in such a short period of time. People needed more certainty than that. At least if people didn't always know when a series was going to begin or end, then they could at least know and anticipate the meal. That's part of the joy, isn't it? That's sort of the gratification of taking in anything. And one of the ways in which I think, just one of the ways in which I believe the BBC have taken the Doctor Who audience for granted, probably since 2013, I'd say Bowles Trek.
Yeah.
I don't think that's particularly unfair.
As I said, the audience are very different today. If we're talking about making it for today, I mean, there's no rules now on how long an episode is. As I said, I've seen many shows on Netflix where the episodes go up and down. So,
it tightens it up. Yeah, well, it tightens it up as well because you're not trying to pad an episode to make it fit, or you're not trying to cut out like Faulty Towers, cutting out things that shouldn't be cut out. So that freedom works. If something works as 40 minutes, leave it at 40 minutes.
Yeah.
If it works as an hour and 10 minutes, leave it at an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got your new take of Doctor Who, you've got your format, and you've got to give people some viable threats here. You want to keep the kids up at night. You want to make sure that there's a few wet beds out there. Andrea, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you first. Which monster would you bring back? An old villain, an old classic Doctor Who monster, or a new classic Doctor Who monster? Would you have a big bad of the season? Who would you pick?
I would bring back the Vashta Narada because they were like just one episode.
Choice.
And we didn't get enough of it, I mean, what are they? We didn't find out what they really are, really. So I think they should definitely bring back that. And the other day I watched, I think it was Before the Flood, the Fisher King. I thought that was a fascinating villain. I'd like to see that too. But I don't really, as far as classic, there's a lot. I mean, but I guess I'm just more focused on the new. I mean, kind of have some classic.
Mandrels.
Okay.
We'd have to change the way they look. We'd have to change the way they look. That would have to be changed.
They look great.
I'm slightly obsessed with the Mandrels. People who listen to the podcast will say I've got this thing about the Mandrels. I loved them when I was a kid. I still sort of love them now. And Harrop have just put out this brilliant model of the Mandrels because they sort of they were drugs that were being smuggled across space, weren't they? And I think as a sort of a substance abuse, and there could be something quite fun that you could do with that now. But I just like their big old goofy faces and the fact that they're wearing flares and those big green boggle eyes. I would love that. Sarah, who would your monster be?
I approach this a different way as the things that I don't want to see for a long time. And that
yes, fair enough. By 2017.
The Master, let me say. I don't want to see the Master for a long time because we've had three full seasons. The Cybermen, I just want to go away for a long time.
Not even the half Cybermen with the half face, the broken face. Not even him.
I did not. He was like the only good thing in it, and it's completely ruined him. Oh God. Obviously you got to have a Dalek in there, but I want the Daleks to be, the main antagonist. It's far too often they've just popped him because obviously they're contractually obliged.
Yeah.
And I can't think the last time we had a proper decent Dalek story. Probably
Dalek.
Dalek, yeah.
Dalek.
Definitely. Great story.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to have seen the Sea Devils back.
Briefly, Sarah, would you have the Daleks, or would they be on their own, or with Davros? Is it? What do you think?
Yeah, both. I'd like to see Davros again. I wasn't as impressed in his second appearance as I was his first with the sewer Daleks. So,
go on, then tell us about the Sea Devils. Why the Sea Devils? We've had the Silurians.
Because we've had the Silurians, and because there's similarities and there's differences, and I think they're a really good, modern monster for this kind of time, but obviously not in this era. I mean, when it was announced that they might have been coming back for season 12, my ears did prick up, but then I just thought, well, they're just going to mess them up anyway. Yeah. So I'm kind of glad they weren't used. I'd like to see the Rani back as well.
Love the Rani.
Yes.
Yep. You too, Gary.
Yeah, she's.
She does things to me.
Really?
What do you know?
No, I do love the Ronnie. I just love the fact that she's amoral rather than just a moustache twirling bad guy. I don't think Kate O'Mara ever had a moustache, but you take the point. It's a figurative moustache. Yeah. So what would the Rani's sort of latest maniacal plan be? What would she be up to? Do you think, Sarah?
Don't know.
poking around inside our minds or something. Like that.
Yeah, she's in charge. She did COVID. That's what.
Preempt that as well.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
She'd be very good at brainwashing as well. With your minions, but yeah, you could get a really glamorous. I imagine somebody like Gillian Anderson.
Oh yeah,
playing.
I can see that.
I can see it too. Do you think it's her role in American Gods Balls Trick? That was a little.
That was awesome.
Yeah, you think so too, Gary? Yep. She had a sort of definitely an alien quality, but because she was playing a representation, wasn't she? Of the was she playing the media or something like that?
Yeah.
You couldn't get much worse than the
She's
media.
Terrifying.
The mainstream media.
Terrifying in that.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. And fair enough.
She's lovely.
Okay, so where are we? Balls Trick. What about you? Would you go for the classic monster, or is there somebody from the new series that you?
I am going with an idea that I've had for a very long time. So I'll set the stage. So throughout the series, there's some kind of figure that's causing various bad things to happen. So you see it, you might see the arm or something like that, but you have no idea who it is. You don't see this person speaking. They're walking around in the shadows. Then in the 2-part series finale, at the end of part 3, the villain reveals itself. So we're in 2017. So this is immediately after the 12th Doctor. So the villain is revealed. It's Peter Capaldi.
What?
So something happens during the regeneration where as the Doctor is regenerating into Martin Clunes, something happens. The previous regeneration splits off. And, maybe you can work out that subtly that the Doctor doesn't remember anything about his previous incarnation. And, without going too deeply into it, there's this block and I don't remember what happened. So we have the previous Doctor who turns into the villain. And this would be a villain that would carry through multiple series. So the Doctor's enemy is actually the Doctor. And something has happened to the 12th Doctor over this period. Say, you could fill in the blanks as to what's happened, but something's happened that's made him twisted and evil to the point that he's forgotten what made him good. And then he is revealed as the Valeyard. Because in the
this is giving me chills. This is giving me chills just thinking about it.
In a Trial of a Time Lord, it is said the Valeyard is between the Doctor's 12th and final incarnation. So, meaning Capaldi is the 12th Doctor. technically his final incarnation, but something happens there. So the villain is the Doctor. I've had this idea since I was a kid.
All right, okay.
Wouldn't it be cool if the previous Doctor turns out to be the villain?
That could really work because of the nature of how Matt Smith regenerated, getting that no regeneration cycle. That could totally play into that. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
You see the baseball flying out of the park. Somebody's just giving it a good old.
You win. You win. Just give you the
follow
job.
that one. Follow that one in.
Sorry?
Follow that one, mate.
What?
Yeah.
No,
I
I can't. I think that's a brilliant idea by Bostrek. You know, damn him.
And so does Chris Persia.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. But I would do what Starry. I'd bring obviously you have to bring the Daleks back, but I would have the Daleks right. I would change the look of it slightly, but not so much that you don't recognize the Dalek. And also I'd make the Daleks really fast. Because you remember
as if anybody would do that and change the Daleks.
Do you remember? Listen, do you remember the Zombies film where the zombies used to walk like this, and then people used to run away from them? And then came this film directed by some British fella, and they were running. The zombies are running, and they were, they're really fast. So if I brought the Daleks back, they would be really fast. They would be really hard to get away from. They'd be destroyed.
They tried that with the Cybermen, didn't they? They had them moving sort of lightning fast. You think there's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, but that was done really badly. But we got the visual effects to do it now, and I'd create some new monsters as well. And I'd like to bring back the sea monsters because they really don't get the credit they deserve. I like to bring them back. And but my idea is not as good as Bostrek's, though, man. I got to take my hat off. If I had one.
I've had the idea for like 30 years, off. Man. So
wherever it is, it's up there.
It seems so obvious now you think about it, but I was there, sort of hanging on. Where's he going to go with this? It's an excellent idea. I wondered about the 50th anniversary and how great it would be if Christopher Eccleston would have turned out been playing, say, the Doctor from another dimension, rather than the Ninth Doctor from our universe, and how they could have shown us another history where maybe the Doctor had created the Daleks, but that was really contrived. I like your idea better. Like I said, we all have these ideas, don't we?
We bow down to you, Bostrek.
That is a belter. Gary, have you got a Doctor Who monster? We heard your Captain Jack idea earlier on, which I'm still really sold on. But are there any villains and monsters that have stuck with you from your mighty action figure collection that we've seen on your videos? Anybody that haunts you out of that lot?
Wow, I don't have an action figure of who I'd like to finally see. I mean, along with the Valiard, you kind of took that Omega. There's always there was this big Omega when the Great Intelligence kind of came back, and they were talking about that. They were with the name of the Doctor. It was always theorized, or not always, but a bunch of us were theorizing that Omega would come back, and I loved that idea.
It was a strong rumor for a while, for a good 6 to 12 months. Yeah. So I would like to see that back. And now, as far as like the Daleks are concerned, you always got to have the Daleks. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but I do think there was a good Stephen Moffat Dalek episode. I love Asylum of the Daleks. I love that freaking episode. It made him creepy, and the stalks coming out of the forehead and the sleeper human whole thing. I love that idea, and I would definitely run with that at some point in time. But I'm not as dark as the others. I kind of like that one. I liked Into the Dalek a lot as well. I can't. I did like some of them. Perhaps they've never been probably the crown. I don't think they've been the crown jewels of a season since series 4.
No, they haven't.
And
probably
RTD was much better.
Yeah,
with epic stories. Moffat was good with the timey-wimey, unreliable narrator stuff, but RTD could just tell a straight story and do it very well.
Moffat was much better with isolated stories.
Yes.
Moons of Madness agrees here. Asylum was epic.
I loved it. It was horrible what happened, and Clara was great in it.
The end to that episode is brilliant. when she finally realizes.
Yep.
And we've got a message here from Problem Being, our good friend Problem Being. Says every season they keep saying Omega and the Rani were coming back, and they it was a recurring thing, wasn't it?
And the Voliard. So
I think some of it came from us fans, but eventually when the mainstream press got hold of it, I don't think they ever really knew who these characters were, but they would sort of turn up in Digital Spy and silly places like that, where they just latch on to try and get our clicks.
Because the Daleks, right? I think the Daleks should be really scary, because I remember when they had that episode with Chris Eccleston, and they were saying, no, we wanted the Daleks nobody to joke about the Daleks anymore, so they made it, had the sucker work and all that. But I still don't think the Daleks is as good as the Borg, because the Borg was really terrifying when they were introduced, and I think that's what we need to do with the Daleks to make them really terrifying, just like the Borg. That's what I think anyway. Because
obviously there's the connection between the Cybermen and the Borg that everybody sees, but I suppose in their stylistically, because the fact that they're humanoid and they sort of slowly walk around, well, they're supposed to slowly walk around, but you see something of the Daleks there as well. Maybe the ultimate treatment of the Daleks would be to do something more like that with them, because I think when Steven Spielberg was developing, when Amblin was developing Doctor Who, of course they were more humanoid Daleks. We've all seen the concept sketches. I would imagine they were all inside sort of because and Davros even more so. They got like spider legs and things like that. But they intended on getting more into the sort of human side of it. They're going to be human Daleks and things like that. I've never been particularly convinced by any of it, but I think the psychology is what sells all of these characters that we're talking about. I mean, apart from the Mandrels, maybe. Apart from the Mandrels, there's obviously the sillier costumes. There's the kind of the picture book, the children's picture book ideas. There's nothing greatly psychological about them, but the Daleks and the Cybermen, I think the reason why they endure, and the reason why half of you have picked them, is because if you've got the right writers, and if you've got directors who can bring something new and individual to it stylistically, you can. It's like you can Mini Cooper the Daleks, all over again. It's worked before, and it would work again. Just don't make them look slight and pathetic and all shriveled up. It would be a very silly thing to do. I can't imagine anybody who would seriously do that. Directors, Ian.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Hello.
Directors now. Yeah. As a director, I would imagine that the one name on your lips to get into direct Doctor Who, who's never done it before, is even Ian David Diaz.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would direct a lot of those episodes, but you do a block yourself. I would do a block, of course, but I would also bring Peter Jackson on because he's passionate about Doctor Who.
Oh, Ian, you're in my mind now.
Oh God,
he's everywhere.
So I would bring
Sonic to infiltrate your mind.
That's right. I bring Peter Jackson on, definitely Peter Jackson. And I would literally get Edgar Wright to direct an episode of Doctor Who, maybe a light version, light episode, whatever. And this is my wild card. I would like to get David Tennant to direct an episode of Doctor Who.
He has directed before. I don't think he's directed drama, but he has directed before.
Yes, exactly. So to get him on, just for the fans, just to say, we got David Tennant directing. You got to be nice to the fans. You can't treat them like shit. You got to be nice to them, but you also got to find the balance to do what's right for Doctor Who and what's right for the fans. So
Edgar Wright was offered Rose as well, wasn't he, Sarah?
Oh yeah, he had
in talks.
Did he have conflict? I think, and he couldn't do it.
I would love him to direct an episode.
And of course, Sean at the Nerdaholics reminds us Peter Capaldi. Of course, he's an Oscar-winning director of a short film. Not quite the same, I know, but interesting option. Why Peter Jackson? Why is this a name that keeps coming up over and over again, do you think?
He's a Doctor Who fan. I mean, he's proved it time and time again. He talks about Doctor Who all the time. And it was so stupid that the BBC didn't pick up on that. I mean, look, right, let's face it, right? Doctor Who does not belong to the BBC. BBC hates Doctor Who. They never give Doctor Who the right budget. they're always doing something that would spoil it. They're always trying to throw it off the railways. They basically hate Doctor Who. BBC
Throwing away episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that.
You know, I think it'd be better if it was on Netflix or HBO took it on, or, you know, keep the British thing in there and keep the British people shaping it. But the BBC, they've never liked Doctor Who. Let's face it, they've never liked Doctor Who. They just kind of tolerate it as the years go on, in my opinion. But
talking about liking, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, please. And hit the bell to get the notifications. I've got to forget I'm on YouTube now. I've got to remember to keep saying all these things. That's why the ticker tape's there. It's just to remind me. And yeah, I'm pretty sold on Peter Jackson too.
Yeah,
Sarah, you're a massive fan of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? Is this an obvious pick for everybody?
Yeah, well, because he just gets it. He can do the fantasy, he can do the dark, he can do the horror, you name it, he's done it. And he loves it, he's got the passion. And we had Stephen Moffat, Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson all doing Tintin. And they should have been, I can just see him sat around the pub talking about Doctor Who. There is stories out there, there's got to be, between the three of them. Yeah. And we've been robbed.
Here we are.
We've all done it, so I refuse to believe that they didn't. I refuse to believe. Which director would you look at, Sarah? Which ones would you go for?
To return, Graham Harper.
Graham again.
Because I adore him. He can do the big action stuff. He can do the emotional stuff.
He's Doctor Who's Ridley Scott, isn't he? He's still got it. He has
still got it, yeah. Rachel Talalay, is that how you pronounce the name? I love the stuff that she did. She did Heaven Sent. And
she was the last great Doctor Who director, wasn't she?
Yes.
You know, I think she's still got her best to give.
Tank Girl.
Yes, Tank Girl.
You can run, but you can't hide from Tank Girl.
It's really, that TARDIS all the time. She finds new ways to light it, new angles. I mean, we had that beautiful set. Was it the end of Doctor Falls where it was like all underneath the TARDIS and it had never been really seen before, and they got it all lit up and
it's going down well. We've got good choice. Starry-Eyed Girl. Girl, call it. We've got more here.
Yeah, she's brilliant. And as Ian said, it'd be Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson, man, let's get him. It'd be awesome.
And
who doesn't agree?
Oh, I agree. That was
Andrea, has he done it again? Has he been inside your head again?
A little bit. Peter Jackson definitely, because I guess he was saying, in my reign of Doctor Who, we bring back the fantasy back, so he'd be perfect, especially for like some kind of finale. Like I think that's where he would shine. Yeah. And I agree with Starry Rachel Talalay, because Heaven Sent is a beautiful episode. Absolutely beautiful. And I would bring Peter Capaldi back because I think that would be awesome to see how he'd be behind the scenes.
Rachel Talalay is not British though, is she? She's Canadian.
Lots of Doctor Who directors.
Right. And Peter Capaldi, because he'd be like a big kid all over again directing, and he would be loving it. And I agree with Nerdaholics. I think he would be an asset to my reign of Doctor Who.
So the two Peters.
What's that?
It's only because you fancy him.
Well, yeah, that's true. I have to look at him too.
That's a scurrilous suggestion, Ian. I don't know where you could. I don't know where you
got that from. No
idea whatsoever.
Figure out Paul McGann on the set too. I'll figure out what
and I don't know if you can hear it. My very overactive husky is howling because she has to go piddle. So I'm just going to run away again briefly just after I do this. But so Starry stole my idea for the one I'd bring back, Graham Harper. Well, the last few weeks, because I've been doing Saturday watch-alongs with Nolan Rabbi. And last week we watched Caves of Androzani, and this week it was Revelation of the Daleks. They don't look anything like anything else from the original series. Just there's no debate, no question. Graham Harper was the best director Doctor Who had, so he's coming back. As to who I would invite, I'm going to give Nicholas Meyer 2 episodes, and I'm just going to let him go to town.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yes, that guy's a good director. He's a
Is Mayer Canadian as well?
No,
Is
no.
he?
He's not.
No, he born in New York City.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
American.
okay.
Yeah.
Presently, may or may not be working on that Khan miniseries that CBS have been talking
No,
about.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see him involved. He was involved in
Get away
Discovery at
from
the
Star
beginning
Trek.
and made them. Yeah, he very, very early Discovery development, and then I believe told them to go shove it.
And Mayer was involved in very, very briefly, as was Leonard Nimoy, in talks with the film company Coast to Coast in the early 90s when they were, I don't know how close they were to making that Doctor Who film. If you speak to Coast, and Peter Lytton, wasn't it? If you speak to any of the people involved at the time, they're really, really close, but everybody else says they were nowhere near at all. But yeah, Nicholas Meyer was one of the people who they'd apparently got lined up. Leonard Nimoy, I think Leonard Nimoy might have talked about it in his second autobiography. So
I want to see him do a Doctor Who themed Day After. I love that film.
Oh yeah, that was him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was him. The not quite as terrifying as Threads, but Threads is the most terrifying thing you will ever watch. To anybody that hasn't seen Threads, it's the British version of the Day After. But the Day After is a wonderfully horrifying movie, and the first thing he directed right after Star Trek 2. So I want to see an apocalyptic, the world is ending, Day After, Nicholas Meyer directed extravaganza insanity. And I will be right back before my dog kills me.
You can imagine, can't you, Gary? Imagine the Peter Capaldi's Valyard in that apocalyptic Nicholas Meyer directed Doctor Who extravaganza. It's really, really sort of potent. It really gets to you. But which directors would you look to?
I am not super familiar with all the Doctor Who directors. Rachel Talalay was the one I knew because I like Tank Girl. So I would, let's go out of the box here. It's going to be episodic, but I really like the idea. If you're going to do a story arc, one of the greatest seasons of television I have ever witnessed was True Detective Season 1. It was magnificent, and it was directed by one person. So if you're going to do something with the story,
the whole season was directed by the one guy.
Yes, and he's from the Bay Area, and his name is Cary Joji Fukunaga. He will be directing the next James Bond film, but he also did Maniac on Netflix. He's an incredible visual director, and I would have him do my two-parters. For that, I would have him, he would be, if it was 2 or 3 two-parters, he would be part of it, and that would be one arc. So I would definitely get that guy. And for a couple of episodes, although I really hate what he did at the end of Mr. Robot season 4.
I was about to say that, yes.
Sam Esmail is another.
He's a terrific director.
Terrific, great, spectacular visual director, kind of a nutbag in real life, but so are most of the people in Hollywood. And that's who I would pick to do 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
He's presently got his hands on Battlestar Galactica, isn't he? So,
I hate that. And they're going to be, it's going to be, and you heard the concept. They're like making it part of Ronald D. Moore's universe. They're not doing a reboot. Or, it's an extension of it, or maybe a prequel. Yeah, it's the worst idea ever.
It does make you wonder where that could possibly go. That it could be any good.
There are a million ways you can go with Battlestar Galactica, like maybe remaking the original one using and that would be much more fun, much more Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars like. But instead, we're gonna go to more postmodernism and dark dystopia stuff. Especially, people really want to watch that during these times. That's what I'm looking forward to. More dark drivel.
I think that I mean, obviously you got people who've directed dark, but I think that at the time Doctor Who with Stephen Moffat had gone really quite dark, and Rachel Talalay in particular, stuff like Heaven Sent, they were important stories, and they were really rich. But once you've been that dark and you've taken the Doctor that far inside himself, you have to really start playing in the light areas too.
Agreed.
You can't the light and the dark. You have to know when to turn it up and to turn it down. Somebody here in the chat Sophie Lowe mentions any Black Mirror directors. Funnily enough, the one person who I would like to see involved with Doctor Who would be Charlie Brooker. I do think that he is a Doctor Who fan, and although Black Mirror itself is very, very dark, that doesn't necessarily mean that he would make Doctor Who dark. I think there's something else. I've heard him talk about Doctor Who before now.
He'd be a good writer, though. He wouldn't be a good director. He'd be good at writing episodes.
Well, yeah, a creative force. I mean, he does direct some of his other material, but I think as somebody because he's still at the full creative, very much. We're talking about Sam Esmail and people like that. They're the full scope of talent. Cary Fukunaga was the major driving force behind that season of True Detective, and they move that on every season. I am right, aren't I? That everybody moves on, and they've done 2 or 3 of those with different crews or something. But I do. I can every time Charlie Brooker talks about Doctor Who, even just give him a 90-minute thing to play with, give him the anniversary story and nothing else. If you can keep him for that, that's they're
both capable of being fun. That's the most important part. They had that 90s episode of Mr. Robot, and Maniac was crazy. It wasn't like the most complete, well-made show, but it was at least they tried something. It was pretty fun.
I would describe those productions as playful. I think Mr. Robot as well, even though it was obviously very, very adult in a lot of ways.
They've cancelled fun, so we are going to de-cancel fun.
Sarah, I don't know about you, but we've got through all of this, and we've got 5 pretty good here, lean, functional examples of how to do Doctor Who. From 2018 onwards, really sort of stylistically varied, and the kind of ideas that sort of make you really ravenous to see it all. After all, but we've gone through all this, and can you believe it? No one's mentioned this fella. Poor Chris Marshall. For the last 3 years, this guy, he's had nothing remotely to do with Doctor Who, and yet if you type his name into Google, immediately, so the second option that pops up is Chris Marshall, Doctor Who. So I salute you, Chris. And maybe one day. Well, I think that somebody should make a decision here, and we're going to throw it open to the chat now, just before we wind things down. So everybody in the chat, I'm going to go through now very, very briefly. We're going to summarise people's different takes on Doctor Who 2018, and although I'm not quite sure how we can read this as it rolls along, if you can give us an idea which one of these versions you think is the winner. We've got starry-eyed girl Sarah Graham here, had Michael Sheen as the Doctor in a McGann-like steampunky TARDIS with one female companion. The stories would be written by Matt Jones and Jonathan Morris, maybe, and they'd be fighting the Sea Devils, directed by Graham Harper and Rachel Talalay.
Sounds good.
Put that in the chat. And we've got Bowles-Trick here. You've got Martin Clunes as a softer Doc Martin-style Doctor, a man who maybe could pass in the 21st century, but looked a little bit strange when you got up close to him there, with an older female British companion who maybe could hail from the 90s. And the episodes would be written by Gareth Roberts or Vince Gallagher and the main villain on that would have been Peter Capaldi as a Valyard, directed by Nicholas Meyer.
Put cancel Bowles-Trick. The hashtag cancel.
That's it. Put that, and you can put hashtag Megageek if you want to go for Ian's Tom Ellis starring Doctor Who, where he'd have his white futuristic TARDIS where the console floats, one female companion, but with otherworldly kind of abilities yet to be revealed. They'd be written by Stephen Moffat and Joe Hill, and probably Ian David Diaz, if I know Ian David Diaz. He'd be in there facing a brand new take on the Daleks. He'd be roping in Edgar Wright and Peter Jackson to direct a couple of blocks each, as well as the aforementioned Ian David Diaz. You're seeing a pattern here. Yes, hashtag Mega Geek if you vote for Ian's. Have we got any vote? We've got a couple of Mega Geeks at the moment. He's doing well. Mega Geek is sort of Bowles-Trick's in the lead so far.
Oh no!
Well, keep in mind there's a minute or so delay between us and them, so they're still coming through.
Okay, the votes for the jury. It's like the Eurovision Song Contest, isn't it?
Yeah,
We've got Andrea, the Blue Bonnet Productions version of Doctor Who would have starred Craig Ferguson or Tom Ellis, and she'd have had Romana as the companion. Episodes would have been written again by Joe Hill, but this time with Russell T Davies, and the Vashta Narada would have been the big bad guy, and she'd have also had Peter Capaldi directing, with Peter Jackson maybe on standby too. That's Peter Jackson again. It's still looking a bit slow there. We're still waiting. And there was Gary with his Chiwetel Ejiofor starring version of Doctor Who, which he wouldn't do anything particularly to the TARDIS, but it'd make up for it in every other area. We'd have this Canadian companion from the near future where we don't know anything about this sort of particular place in her past, if you remember, and they'd be written by Grant Morrison and Jamie Matheson as two deep-thinking writers. Captain Jack would come back, but go rogue, and the original sort of one of the original Time Lords, the pioneering Time Lord Omega, the Lord of Antimatter, he'd return as the big bad guy, and he'd be tapping Kari Fukunawa and Rachel Talalay to direct. Maybe get that Tank Girl crossover that we've all wanted for the last 25 years. Who knows? So put an N if you want to go with Gary's there. Yes, we've got some comments here. Agree. Can't we just vote for them all and showrun a season each? We could do a season each. Could be 5 years worth. This will keep HBO happy with it. 5 solid takes on Doctor Who here going forward, all the way up from 2018 through to 2021, 22. And we could guarantee them a series every single year, couldn't we?
That's right.
And the whole thing that we'd have in common is we'd all have Murray Goldberg.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Give the man a raise.
Probably would, actually. You go for that too, Andrea?
Yes, give him a raise. Just out of curiosity, Ian, who would you cast to play Romana? I want to see if you're in my brain.
Well, I would maybe cast the girl that played that was in Captain America, the British girl.
Oh, Haley Atwell.
Really?
Aubrey Plaza.
Oh yeah, she'd be very interesting. That's an interesting choice. I do like her though, Aubrey Plaza.
Because in the Big Finish audios, Juliet Lando played Romana for an incarnation, didn't she? I haven't heard those myself. She reminds me of Aubrey Plaza a little, what she did when she was playing Drusilla. I think we've got a bit of a hung vote on this. People aren't quite sure, but you know what? I think, considering we've got 6 people here who have pretty strong views, I'll hold my hands up and say I've got pretty strong views. I know. I've
never had a strong view in my life, man. I ride the fence.
Apart from you, I'm going to keep the comments obviously open to this. Oh well, we've got a lot more here. We've got there's a message here from the wonderful Purple Lady. Fantastic show. Well done, the space. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
They are all wonderful, aren't they? Here we are, Bolstrick. Bolstrick is the wallflower in this panel. I don't think. There's a first time for everything, isn't there, my friend?
Look, somebody's voting for me. Somebody's voting for me. I can't believe it.
You were in the lead. You were in the lead fairly early there. It was looking very good. Lurching back now, everybody. In fact, I'm going to do this again just to emphasise the fact. Here's my thing. Lurching back here into our the original universe.
Back to
back.
No expense spared.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2020 has been a year, I'm sure, a lot of those original classic Doctor Who writers who dreamt up such as Inferno, they would have speculated about, but hope that they'd never see. So we obviously hope you're all safe and well and joining us back here now in 2020 proper.
I want to go back, damn it.
I want to go
BBC budget right there.
Let's get back, yeah. Just a reminder that the Type 40 is a Doctor Who podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, and it is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, the Podbean app, fbnet.podbean.com, and it's a Spacebook production for the Fandom Podcast Network. And thank you for your company. So my thanks to Andrea, to Blue Bonnet Hoovian there, Ian the Mega Geek Diaz, Gary Beaker, of course, at Nerdrotic, and the man known only as Boltrick. You've enjoyed yourself as well, haven't you, Sarah, being back?
I have, it's been good being back.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be back pretty soon with some more Type 40. Look out for that. It could have been wherever you found this on YouTube. We're not sure. We've got some more videos coming up, but it could have been on Apple Podcasts. If you search for the Fandom Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, while you're there, drop us a review just for a moment so that new listeners can find us that bit easier. Yeah, we're on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, all those places. Anything you want to say to any of us direct, you can contact us email type40doctorwho@gmail.com. There's Twitter and Instagram at type40doctorwho. I'm scattered throughout all of space and time, but mostly lately on Twitter as the Spacebook. Bluebonnet Hoovie and Andrea, where can people find you? Where can they get in touch with you and view your content?
I have a Twitter account, Bluebonnet Hoovian, and obviously on YouTube.
Ian, where can people hear and see more from you? Where do you pop up? You pop up everywhere.
You know, I've only got one channel. It's Rebecca Gold channel, and it's just got 5 episodes of Rebecca Gold.
Bolstrek, do you want to plug your channel, mate? Where can people hear and see your notorious videos?
Well, I have a complete dumpster fire of a Twitter account, so yeah, go over there, and you won't be the same. And then I have a channel that occasionally features a talking goat who will be making a comeback soon.
Yay, President Cole.
About time.
Bull's Trek, where I people say I'm somewhat negative. I don't know. I don't see that. I think I'm very positive.
Gary, where can people find you? Where can they hear you? Where can they see you?
Oh, well, thank you. You can find me at Nerdrotic on YouTube. Nerdrotic Live is my alternate channel where all the live streams go, and nerdrotic.com is my backup. So you can, through that, you can find me on Spotify, any iTunes mirror site. Thank you very much again for having me on. And we've got to get you on the channel very, very soon. By the way, my American doctor will be Peter Dinklage.
That's a subject for another stream. Watch Ian, watch and listen to Ian cringe some more. Maybe later. That's too good to leave hanging. But that's our cliffhanger. What do you think, Sarah? That should be our cliffhanger for this very first live stream. Come back. We'll be talking about Peter
Rewrite your memories
at some point. And American doctors and all.
It would be brilliant. Sorry.
I don't know. So how's this been, Sarah? What do you think? Put this down as a success. What do you think about this lot?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
We've got an excellent panel.
Thank you. Seriously, thanks to everybody in the chat. It's been brilliant. And yeah, join us again next time here on Type 40, whether it's on the Fandom Podcast Network or on YouTube. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Watch out for more Type 40. We're a Doctor Who podcast where we always have the time if you have the space.